Disney, the global powerhouse of storytelling, is under siege, but this time, the enemy is from within. At the heart of the storm is the controversial Snow White remake, and the tension inside Disney's headquarters is palpable. CEO Bob Iger, a man known for steering the company through turbulent waters, is now facing a crisis unlike any before. Insiders whisper about growing frustration among top executives, who are watching in disbelief as the film spirals into chaos. What was meant to be a modern retelling of a beloved classic has instead ignited backlash, casting a dark shadow over Disney's carefully curated brand. It's not just a matter of creative differences, this is about the future of Disney's legacy.
It's not designed right now to necessarily develop great leaders or to encourage more people to seek public office. It just is far more difficult. Now, I've never been in it, but from what I observe, it's far more difficult to run for office today than ever before.
Decisions that were once made with confidence are now being second-guessed. Executives are scrambling to figure out how it all went so wrong. The stakes couldn't be higher. If this film fails, it won't just be a box office flop. It could signal a deeper rot within the Magic Kingdom itself. The boardrooms that once buzzed with innovation are now tense with uncertainty. One wrong move, and the dominoes could start to fall. But how did it get this far? The answer lies in a controversial creative decision that many believe crossed the line, a decision that changed the very heart of Snow White. And that's where Rachel Zegler enters the story, bringing with her a storm that no one at Disney saw coming. Rachel Zegler wasn't just cast as Snow White, she became the lightning rod for a cultural firestorm. From the moment her casting was announced, audiences were divided, but it wasn't just about who she was, it was about what she said. Zegler's bold statements about transforming Snow White into a modern, independent girl boss and questioning the relevance of Prince Charming struck a nerve. Fans who cherished the original story felt betrayed, accusing Disney of erasing the fairy tale's timeless charm in favor of forced modern messaging. Her remarks didn't stop there. In interviews, Zegler suggested that the prince, a cornerstone of the original narrative, might not even appear in the remake, calling him a stalker rather than a romantic hero. That revelation sent shockwaves through Disney's fan base. Social media exploded with outrage. Hashtags calling for boycotts began trending. What was meant to be an empowering update quickly devolved into a PR nightmare. Inside Disney, executives were blindsided. They hadn't anticipated that Zegler's off-the-cuff remarks would spark such fury. Now they were scrambling to manage the fallout, but the damage was already done. Public trust in Disney's ability to honor its classics was crumbling, and all eyes were on how they would recover. But this was only the beginning. The controversy didn't stop at casting choices. It bled into the very fabric of the film's production, raising even bigger questions about Disney's creative direction. And then came the film's biggest gamble yet, the decision to heavily rely on CGI to bring the 7 dwarfs to life. Gone were the charming hand-drawn personalities that audiences adored. In their place stood digital creations, cold and lifeless, stripped of the warmth that made the original characters so beloved. Fans didn't hold back. They questioned whether this film even qualified as live action anymore. The human touch that once defined Disney magic was fading, replaced by sterile, computer-generated imagery that felt distant and hollow. Actors, including Zegler, struggled to perform alongside green screens and tennis balls instead of real co-stars. The chemistry, the emotional depth, everything that made Disney stories resonate was slipping through their fingers. Critics argued that the CGI dwarfs lacked the distinct personalities and heart of their predecessors, turning them into background noise rather than key players in the story. The backlash wasn't just about aesthetics, it was about the very soul of the film. Disney's gamble on CGI wasn't paying off, and the audience was noticing. Fans who once eagerly anticipated this remake were now questioning whether it could ever capture the magic of the original.
It's the craziest thing ever that it came true in that weird way, and that's why I bring her everywhere, and she's the best ever. But yeah, I put myself on tape. It's the worst tape you've ever seen in your life. I have no idea how I got the part still. And it's being used to teach future casting directors at NYU.
But the CGI dwarfs were only the tip of the iceberg. Behind the scenes, a much larger problem was brewing, one that would threaten to upend Disney's entire approach to filmmaking. And then came the film's biggest gamble yet, the decision to heavily rely on CGI to bring the Seven Dwarfs to life. Gone were the charming, hand-drawn personalities that audiences adored. In their place stood digital creations, cold and lifeless, stripped of the warmth that made the original characters so beloved. Fans didn't hold back. They questioned whether this film even qualified as live action anymore. The human touch that once defined Disney magic was fading, replaced by sterile, computer-generated imagery that felt distant and hollow. Actors, including Zegler, struggled to perform alongside green screens and tennis balls instead of real co-stars. The chemistry, the emotional depth, everything that made Disney stories resonate was slipping through their fingers. Critics argued that the CGI dwarfs lacked the distinct personalities and heart of their predecessors, turning them into background noise rather than key players in the story. The backlash wasn't just about aesthetics, it was about the very soul of the film. Disney's gamble on CGI wasn't paying off, and the audience was noticing. Fans who once eagerly anticipated this remake were now questioning whether it could ever capture the magic of the original. But the CGI dwarfs were only the tip of the iceberg. Behind the scenes, a much larger problem was brewing, one that would threaten to upend Disney's entire approach to filmmaking. The visual execution of the film only added fuel to the fire. Disney's decision to rely heavily on CGI to recreate the iconic Seven Dwarfs stripped away the heart of the story. Instead of charming, hand-drawn characters full of personality, audiences were met with cold, digital creations lacking the warmth and soul that made the originals so beloved. Fans were quick to criticize, claiming the film no longer felt like a live-action adaptation, but a hollow, computer-generated spectacle. Actors like Zegler faced the daunting task of acting alongside green screens and tennis balls rather than real, tangible co-stars. This artificial environment drained the performances of authenticity, making it nearly impossible to capture the magic and emotional depth of the original. The chemistry, the connection, everything that made Disney classics resonate was slipping away. The backlash wasn't limited to aesthetics. It pierced through to the core of Disney's storytelling. Fans began to question whether the company had lost its grip on what made its films magical in the first place. The overuse of CGI wasn't just a stylistic choice, it symbolized a larger disconnect between Disney and its audience. But as the backlash intensified, another issue emerged, one far more personal. Rachel Zegler's growing public persona and political statements started to overshadow the film itself. Suddenly, the controversy wasn't just about the creative direction, but about Zegler as a figurehead, and this was a problem Disney couldn't ignore. Zegler's growing public persona became an even bigger problem when her outspoken political views started clashing with Disney's family-friendly image. Comments targeting specific political groups and her unapologetic stance on social issues divided audiences further. What should have been harmless promotion turned into heated debates, making it nearly impossible for Disney to control the narrative. Producers and industry insiders began to take notice. Suddenly, casting Zegler wasn't seen as a bold move. It was a risk. Studios whispered that her involvement could jeopardize future big-budget projects, labeling her a controversial figure rather than a rising star. The fear wasn't just about this one film, it was about what her presence meant for future collaborations. Disney's marketing team was now fighting on multiple fronts. They had to promote a film mired in controversy while dealing with the unpredictable social media landscape. Every statement, every interview was scrutinized. No matter how they spun it, public perception was slipping through their fingers. It was a delicate balancing act, and one misstep could be catastrophic. But the biggest challenge was yet to come. As public opinion soured, whispers turned into roars. Fans and critics alike began asking the one question Disney couldn't afford to answer: has Disney lost touch with the very magic that made it legendary? As pressure mounted, Disney's marketing machine scrambled to pivot. They attempted to refocus the conversation, releasing carefully crafted statements emphasizing the film's commitment to diversity and modern storytelling. But the damage was already done. Every new promotional effort felt like a desperate attempt to plug holes in a sinking ship. Audiences weren't buying it, literally and figuratively. Even more troubling, industry analysts began forecasting grim box office predictions. The Snow White remake was now being labeled a potential financial disaster. Early screenings were met with lukewarm responses, and pre-release buzz had shifted from excitement to apprehension. Merchandise sales, often a strong indicator of a Disney film's success, were reportedly sluggish, signaling deeper trouble ahead. Disney now stood at a crossroads. Their legacy of enchanting stories was clashing with the modern era's demand for inclusivity and change. Yet, the execution seemed to alienate both traditional fans and the new audience they were trying to court. Could Disney recover from this cultural and financial financial storm? Or was this just the beginning of a larger unraveling within the once untouchable empire? One thing was clear, the world was watching, and Disney's next move would determine whether they could reclaim their magic or fade into a cautionary tale of corporate overreach and creative missteps. Yet, the storm wasn't just raging outside Disney's walls, it was brewing internally. Reports began surfacing of internal disagreements among Disney's top executives. Some argued for doubling down on their modernized storytelling, insisting that bold risks were necessary to stay relevant in today's world. Others pushed for a return to the timeless, heartfelt narratives that built Disney's empire. This internal rift only deepened the company's struggles, creating a fractured leadership at the worst possible time. Amidst the chaos, financial concerns loomed larger. Shareholders grew restless as Disney's stock began to wobble. Investors, once confident in Disney's unbeatable formula, were now questioning the company's strategic vision. The fear of a box office bomb weighed heavily on everyone involved. Could the company afford another high-profile failure, or would this be the misstep that shook its foundation? Disney stood at a perilous tipping point. Their next decisions could either restore faith in the brand or accelerate its decline. As the release date of Snow White approached, one truth became undeniable. The world was watching, and Disney had everything to lose. The fallout from the Snow White controversy is more than a PR disaster. It's a test of Disney's resilience. Fans are no longer whispering their disappointment, they're shouting it from every social media platform. Calls for boycotts grow louder, merchandise sits unsold on shelves, and early box office projections continue to plummet. This isn't just a movie release gone wrong, it's a reckoning for Disney's entire approach to reimagining its classics. Behind the scenes, the pressure is mounting. Investors are demanding answers, executives are scrambling for solutions, and Disney's creative teams are caught in the crossfire. Every decision now carries weight far beyond this single film. How Disney responds to this crisis will define not just the future of their remakes, but the future of their brand. Will they double down on modernizing their classics, risking further alienation of loyal fans? Or will they return to the storytelling magic that made them a household name? One thing is certain, Disney is standing at a crossroads, and the next step they take will either restore their legacy or shatter it completely.